Welcome to the Real Life Buyer podcast. In this podcast, you will hear interviews with business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, authors, and technical specialists in their field. These professionals will hasten your development, accelerate your career, and broaden your business know-how. Now, introducing your host, Dave Barr, interviewing with a purchasing twist.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Life Buyer. How would you like to meet a coach for entrepreneurs that helps them scale to multi-six-figure levels whilst achieving and maintaining inner peace and balance? If so, this could be your lucky day. Today, I have the great pleasure of introducing you to Mario Lanzarotti. Mario began his career journey as a Lufthansa pilot trainee. He segued into becoming a chief operating officer at Owl and Sundry before launching a full-time career as the Freedom Architect, a high-performance coach, in May 2017. In this podcast, I wish to delve into the minds of high achievers, exploring strategies to overcome mental blocks and achieve accelerated success, all guided by this world-class coach who empowers individuals to unlock their true potential and accomplish extraordinary feats in record time. So, without further ado, I welcome Mario onto the podcast. Hi, Mario.
David, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I'm honored, and I'm looking forward to sharing a powerful conversation with you that impacts a lot of lives.
Lovely. Fantastic. Thank you for joining me today. We just talked about the weather. We've both suffered quite a lot of rain. So hopefully the sun is starting to shine back on us. Let's start by scrolling back some of your history and kind of review the journey you've had. So how and why did a trainee pilot find himself as an acclaimed TEDx speaker, mentoring and training entrepreneurs to greater levels of success?
That's a great question. And so the reason I decided to become a pilot in Germany for Lufthansa is because I had no clue what to do with my life. And I felt this great need inside of me to do something that would prove my worth, that would prove my sort of stand in life, who I am in life, that would make sure that I would give back to all of the privileges that I got from my parents growing up. And so I had no clue essentially what to do with my life. And then I watched the movie Catch Me If You Can. And I saw Leonardo DiCaprio playing the main character, Frank Abagnale, and how he was so smoothly traveling around the world, being respected by men and women alike, and just being able to sort of move through life in this very easy way. And I thought, wow, that sounds just like the right thing for me. And so I looked for the most challenging way of doing that in Germany. Obviously, that wasn't my intention, but in hindsight, that's what I was doing because I was really trying to prove myself. And so I went into that pilot career. I made it. 93% of all the people, thousands of people that apply each year fail. So I really put everything I had on the line and I made it. And I remember, David, the first day I got into that school, I had this gut-wrenching feeling that was telling me, what the heck are you doing here? Turn around and run. You know, I often like to say to people that sometimes I can be like the dog that barks at the cars that drive by. Right? One car passes, another car passes, and the door just barks. But the moment one of the cars stops and somebody gets out, the dog is totally overwhelmed. It's like, oh my God, this is real. Somebody actually got out. That's how I felt. It was real in that moment for me. And because I had put so much on the line, I didn't want to admit to myself that I had made a mistake, that I wasn't coming from a genuine place, that I wasn't really passionate about becoming a pilot, but really about impressing other people. And so I forced myself into this career path. I became severely depressed, contemplated suicide for a few weeks, had a slip disc, which caused me chronic back pain pretty much 24/7. And on top of that, I was so afraid that somebody would find out that they would label me as a failure. So I would keep it all to myself. And as I hit rock bottom and I felt completely alone with my thoughts and feelings, feeling like an absolute fraud, like an absolute failure, through divine intervention, I came across Tony Robbins and Les Brown on YouTube. And the testimony of these two men, of how they made a comeback from far worse conditions than I could ever imagine, inspired something deep inside of me. and I began to consume their content day in and day out, day in and day out. And finally, it helped me to find the courage to speak up and decide to quit that career. And it was at that time that I decided for myself, one day I too will help people free themselves from the thoughts and feelings that are holding them back in life. That was the beginning.
Wow, it's quite an impactful story, because obviously people think of pilots as a high achiever. After all, you're one of 7% of people that fail. People have strived to become a pilot. As you say, it's quite a badge of honor, actually. To be honest, being a pilot, you literally have the wings put on your coat. So it's very interesting that you hit a kind of moment in your life where that wasn't for you, whereas many people would be overwhelmed with how fantastic it would be to have the opportunity. That's quite amazing. And then to have that massive low as well, to even consider suicide, there's a real roller coaster of emotions going on there. And I totally appreciate Tony Robbins and such, and I've watched some of his stuff. I haven't splashed out the, shall we say, the fees to enjoy one of his presentations, shall we say, over many days. But I've heard of many people who have loved what he's done, and I do watch the videos, and I am inspired by those. So I kind of get that. So you've made this huge choice. You've now transitioned into this different person. It sounds like quite a fundamental shift. And you're now working, hopefully, with other high achievers. Now, over the period of time that you spent with these people, what are some of perhaps the most notable mental and emotional blockages that you've observed these people to struggle with? Particularly as we all think of these as, a high achiever. They don't have any problems, do they? They always excel. So, to know what actually they go through be quite interesting. And then how did you help them overcome those issues so they could sort of reach higher levels of performance and well-being?
That's a great question and a very relevant topic. See, there's a caveat to that, because a lot of high achievers are not aware of the mental challenges they're facing, because there's such a stigma around, if you are a high achiever, you shouldn't have these kind of problems. You shouldn't have self-doubt. You shouldn't face the imposter syndrome. You shouldn't feeling anxious. You shouldn't feel any of those things, particularly men. Men have the biggest struggle to even admit to themselves that they are struggling, because they fear being labeled as weak in society. And especially for men, the predominant amount of people that I work with are men. Especially men have such a fear of being labeled as weak, because for us men, as an archetypal way of looking at men in society, we're providers. And so if you're labeled weak, you can't provide. That's sort of the mental, unconscious conversation that a lot of men go through without being aware of it. And it prevents them from even being able to check in with themselves. So oftentimes when I ask entrepreneurs that I first encounter, and how are you feeling? Yeah, a little stressed, it's just a little much, but it's all right. It's just sort of downplaying that and sort of lacking the vocabulary and the mental and emotional awareness to even understand what's going on. But underneath that, you find a lot of self-doubt. You find a lot of lack of focus, being distracted. And let's take lack of focus and being distracted, because it's a very common phenomena that often leads to procrastination. What do high performers often then say? Why are you not able to be focused? Well, because I'm lazy, or because I don't really know, it's just one of those things. I don't have the time. There's just so much going on right now in my life. And you asked, how do I help them deal with that? Well, the first thing you have to understand is, how does the relationship between human behavior and your mind and your body work? So let's ask the question, what is it that brings an entrepreneur to consistently grow their business? Right? There's no magic in that. It's very simple. It's consistent, strategic, and powerful actions over consistent periods of time. That results in business growth. So what gets in the way? What gets in the way is not you not having enough time. What gets in the way is you not having enough information available. What gets in the way is your state of being. That is how you are thinking and feeling. That creates your state of being. So if we bring that back to the lack of focus that a lot of entrepreneurs are facing, it's because there is an emotion that is causing you to seek a distraction. A distraction like checking your phone, eating sugary foods, watching porn, even working excessively long hours is also often a coping mechanism that comes from a feeling that the person doesn't want to feel. It's really that. When you understand, when you have the awareness what the feeling is, could be anxiety, could be a fear of failure, could be a shame or guilt. Once you know that, then I guide my client into a process of feeling their feelings. And the more you can feel your feelings, the more they can move away. I always say, what you feel has space to heal. And that allows an entrepreneur to become highly focused and unstoppable, because there's nothing that gets in their way other than their than their inability and their lack of feeling their own feelings.
It's quite interesting. I'm interested by the reference to lack of information. Now, I find quite often personally that I feel I never know enough. I never have enough information. No matter what I do, what I read, what I watch, you almost get self-doubt that you're never going to be the expert because you just don't know enough. Do you find that's often the case with these people who come across as super confident, that actually they have those same fears?
Yeah, totally. Here's the thing. High performers are some of the most traumatized people in our society, and they do not want to talk about it. In fact, I'm going to go further. I'm going to say most high performers that I have experienced and come across and worked with do what they do because of something that happened in their past that traumatized them. And I'll explain. See, when human beings come into the world, we call those human beings children. They come into the world whole and complete. They do not miss anything. They are naturally curious, naturally confident. They are open, loving. They have no conceived idea of this is a bad human being, this is a good human being, this is a racism. None of that stuff exists. Then they go through conditioning, and then they develop a personality. And what happens is, at some point in their life, and this is a very human process, there is a perceived loss of power. People call it trauma. I'll give you an example of what happened in my life. When I was in first grade, I was playing on the schoolyard with a bunch of my friends. I brought a ball from home. We were all playing, having a good time. All of a sudden, one of the girls stopped the game, picked up the ball, looked at me in front of the whole schoolyard, yelled, "Mario, that's against the rules. You can't do that." In that moment, I felt petrified, singled out, deeply ashamed. On a logical level, nothing bad happened, nothing at all, right? An adult would be like, okay, whatever, let's go on. But as a child, it was so painful for me. In that moment, I went up to her, I took the ball back, and I screamed at her. I said, "That's my ball. I make the rules. I will show you." And "I will show you" became the dominant theme of my life, which is exactly why the Lufthansa experience happened. Because "I will show you" became, I have to prove myself to the world. Unless I prove myself, I'm not worthy of love. And so that developed my insane hunger to be the best at anything that I did. And on one hand, people must say, well, that's a great thing, right? Well, yes. And there's a cost to it. For the way that I look at that is, everything in life serves a purpose. For me, it helped me to develop these high achieving skills, courage, discipline, that hunger for knowledge, right? Expansion, strength in terms of my character, so many things. However, it came at a great cost. And so at some point, the entrepreneur needs to take a look at and saying, what I have used to get me here is not going to get me to where I want to be. This is why so many entrepreneurs keep burning out month after month after month after month. And they ask themselves, why does it keep happening? right? Even though I know what I should do, right? I have the information. I read the book about meditation, about breathing. I listened to the podcast with David, and he brought on an expert who said that you have to stop working at 5 p.m. and turn off all your notifications. But I'm just not doing it. The reason you're not doing it is because it is a direct threat to the way you have learned to create results in life. So you need to completely change your identity.
That's really interesting. Another thing I was thinking about as you were talking there is when you achieve something at a high level and people recognize it, then basically you've put yourself on a pedestal. You're in very, visible, plain sight, but you've got that much further to fall. And so the stress of making a failure in itself is that much greater because it's visible to everybody. The reality is that a lot of people may not notice, but in your mind, the whole world will notice when that kind of failure happens. Now, I've recently watched the Undercover Billionaire series and seen people who I see as super strong characters, Grant Cardone being an example, who went through the trauma of, blimey, I may fail in this task. And look what it would do to my reputation. I'm seen as this incredible person that makes, shed loads of money, and I'm an expert. If I fail, it's like falling off Everest for him. Is that something that you see time and time again in your client teachings?
Yeah, totally. Unless you deal with what is creating the fear, the higher you go, the higher the stakes, and the more you have to lose. And so you need to, as you grow your business, you need to access a greater level of self-mastery. Self-mastery is a big word. The way that I look at self-mastery is it is really a holistic way of coming home to yourself, right? So the Mario that when he was 8 years old experienced that used to be inside of me, used to be very active. So when I would be criticized or by people, or I would be challenged by people, I would crumble. I would get anxious. I would get so frustrated and agitated inside of me. What does that do in business? Well, it makes you weak because you are reactive. You make stupid decisions. You procrastinate. You don't show up powerfully in a negotiation, on a sales call, right? Even you take that into your partnership, with your marriage, with your kids, everywhere. So you have to learn how to have a sense of emotional mastery. But the only way that is possible is by healing what happened in your past. And so the higher you go with that unhealed person, why do you think so many celebrities are constantly committing suicide? Because they cannot surmount the pressure anymore. And I see a lot of people heading that way. You take somebody like a David Goggins. Are you familiar with David Goggins?
Yeah, I am indeed.
The hard guy. Great human being, very inspiring what he's accomplished. But I don't buy that this man is living a peaceful, happy, fulfilled life. I don't buy that. I think he's in a lot of pain, and I think that he's using his achievement to temporarily numb that pain. But I think there's something coming for people like him, and I think there's a better way.
Yeah, it's really interesting that let's take a little journey off-piste, shall we say, at the moment, because you also see people in these positions tend to go to a different path that people don't expect. Now, one of the things I've picked up in your bio, shall we say, your portfolio, is that you've participated in various spiritual plant ceremonies.
Yeah.
And that seems quite off-piste to me. We're talking about business and coaching and mastery. Now, this is quite unusual, and people will think of a spiritual ceremony perhaps in a strange way. And there may be connotations that they associate that term that is negative. So I want to understand more about what you've done. What are these ceremonies, and how have those experiences influenced your approach to coaching and raising others' consciousness?
That's a great question and an amazing topic. And I'm happy that you bring this up because it's so relevant. So the spiritual ceremonies that you relate to are what are known as psychedelic sessions. So we're talking about ayahuasca, San Pedro, psilocybin, DMT. Those are usually plants and substances that are found with indigenous people and that have been practiced for thousands of years. And recently, in the last sort of 10 years, maybe 20 years, that's been sort of a recoming of what happened during the hippie ages, right? And so the first time I got in contact with this was in New York City. And I used to be a hardcore atheist. I would be the kind of guy that if you brought up spirituality or God, I would argue you into the ground just so I could prove myself, right? Because I was still active. I had to be right all the time. And so I was quite skeptic about this. Friends of mine told me, I watched a documentary. I was like, okay, ayahuasca, okay, whatever, what is this thing? And then so many people told me that this is incredible, life-changing. People healed their drug addictions. I didn't have any drug addictions, but I was like, okay, I'm open. And so I went, and David, it was the most profound experience of my entire life. I had an experience where I had this profound sense of being home. It was like there was something that held me through the entire experience with a sense of fierceness to face my fears and the things that I'd been avoiding my whole life. And on the other hand, a sense of safety that I'd never experienced before. The safety, the message that kept on coming to me was like, I love you no matter what. There's nothing you can do to not make you love you. And it was so strong. It was so visceral, so real that after that experience, I said, I believe in God. I don't know what God is. Whether it's a dude sitting in the clouds, watching everybody masturbating and saying, you are going to hell, or a frequency, an energy. It's not really that important to me. I know that it's there for me. It's real. And what it has given me was a sense of freedom to be who I am that I've never experienced before in my life. I felt so liberated from doubt, from anxiety, from just heaviness inside of me that I started going into life with a sense of lightness, energy, passion, and this renewed sense of confidence within myself. Now, if you listen closely, all of the things I mentioned are extremely important criteria for entrepreneurial success. And so I became hooked. I was like, okay, let's dive in. And so over the years, I explored many different modalities in different countries with different people in the Amazon forest. And it was incredibly powerful. And I will say this, explore it in terms of find out about it, learn about it. Psychedelics is a monumental field. It's huge. Many countries are legalizing it. It's very well studied. And if you feel called to that, if there's a strong calling inside that, yes, I want to know more, then find a professional. Find somebody who is highly experienced, comes highly recommended. Anybody can reach out to me. I know a lot of people in that space. Do not just fly to some Mexico Tulum place and just one guy say, hey, I do ceremonies. Don't do that, right? Go with the professionals, but I can highly recommend exploring it because it's been truly life-changing for me.
That's really interesting. And are there certain things that you felt during that experience that you've assisted other people with in some way? You know, if you had to pick an example where you had a client and you reflected back on your experience, what would be the kind of thing that you use to help them?
Yeah. So there's a client of mine very recently when we started working together. He was working for one of the big 4 companies in the UK actually as a consultant, and he had his business on the side and he wanted to quit. He wasn't happy with his business. He wanted to go all in with his entrepreneurial journey. His then girlfriend, they were not married at the time. They're married now. Shaky relationship. And he was so afraid of facing his own feelings and thoughts about his partner, about his habits, about fantasies with other women, about the fact that he hated his job. There was all these things he wasn't facing. He didn't want to look at that. He was just sort of entertaining a thought. Yeah, one day I'll make the jump. I'll take the leap. I'll do it. And there's so many people out there that are doing that right now that are just fantasizing in their head about the life that they want to live. And so what I experienced back then with these ceremonies is I came face to face with my fears and I felt them. See, in a psychedelic ceremony, you are essentially losing a sense of control over your feelings. You are not going to be like, oh, I feel anxious, but no, I'm just going to push that to the side. No, the anxiety is going to come up, and you might feel really uncomfortable, right? You might cry. I cried a lot. I cried for hours and just released all of that. And what it helped me do was become very comfortable with my clients experiencing their emotions. And so I challenged him to look at all of that. And he had many moments where he released the emotions that he was holding on to. And the moment he did, David, he quit his career. He went all in with this business. It's now a six-figure space. He married his then girlfriend, which was a shaky relationship. He even invited me to their wedding. And now he's happy, fulfilled, and he continues his growth journey. That would have never been possible if I had not done it myself.
It's interesting because I relate to the fact that showing emotions can be very, very difficult. Certainly ones that make you feel vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
You know, for a guy to cry, I've got to be in some serious pain to do that. So, for you to manage to get somebody to release their inner worries, concerns in a way that does help them, I think that's quite extraordinary, and I'd love to see it one day. So let's come closer to the normal path, but I'm not going all the way there yet, because you also are a certified NLP practitioner and a hypnotherapy coach. So, and again, people are very skeptical about these things. What kind of strategies and tools have you discovered in that area of your life that, again, have helped your clients get accelerated results and achieve the kind of things they're looking for?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I understand how people are skeptical. I used to be totally skeptical about this stuff. I used to make fun of it until I had experienced it firsthand. And the most powerful tool that I learned from NLP is reframing. Now, a lot of people, when they hear about reframing, they sort of think, oh, it's semantics, right? Whether I tell myself that I should, I have to, I need to, or I choose, I mean, same thing, right? Well, actually, it isn't, because a language really creates the kind of reality that we're living in. See, reality, the way that we experience it, is completely subjective. Whether you say, oh, it's a good day or it's a bad day, on a neutral level, it's just a day. Actually, it's not even that. It just is. There is no such thing as a day, that we made it up. Human beings, some people came together and said, oh, let's call this thing time. Great. Okay, what do we call this? We call it an hour. Okay, let's call this a day. Let's call this a night. Great. So we just made agreements, and now we live in the world of agreements. And that's not right or wrong. It's just the way that it is. The challenge with that is the agreements we have made in life, most of them unconsciously, limit us. So if you look at, for instance, I say there is a difference between what drives human beings, what drives entrepreneurs into taking action. It's very important to understand that. And that comes from the way that you're using language. So I call it being Zen-driven, right? Because I run a company called Six Figures Zen, and I'm the Zenpreneur, or being fear-driven. One person, the fear-driven person, says, I don't have it within me. I lack. Therefore, I have to, I must, I need. Get out into the world and achieve this thing so I can get that. What that is usually a feeling of peace, a feeling of confidence, a feeling of freedom. But really, if you think about it, what is that? A feeling of freedom. When you have finally hit that financial target at the end of the month, what do? You do this. You relax. You give yourself permission to do it. But you can do that any moment. You don't have to wait. So what is it that's causing the person to be able to do that? Well, it's the frame of reference at which they look at the world and themselves. If they say, I don't have it, I am not, then they now in their mind need to go out, work hard into the world, get it, so they can give themselves a tiny break to access the feeling that they want to have. If, however, they say, well, I already am successful. I already am free. I already am wonderful. That doesn't mean that you are going to bullshit yourself and just say, oh, I'm happy, I'm rich, I am, and then you don't feel any of that. Now that's sort of bypassing it. But if you change the frame of reference through language from I should to I choose, something miraculous will happen. Then you will recognize that everything in life is a choice. You don't have to go out and make money. Some people will say, what do you mean? You're crazy. Of course I have to. Otherwise, how am I going to pay the bills? You don't have to pay the bills. What do you mean? Of course I have to pay the bills. Otherwise, my wife is going to kick me out. Well, you can leave. You're a free human being. But most of us, we pretend that we're not. So we create, through language, a world of suffering and hardship. Oh, I have to do this every day. It's so hard, man. I really have to do this. No, you don't. You can walk away. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You can get a 9-to-5 job, make your 5,000 pound, 10,000 pound, and just live happily ever after. But you're choosing not to. So if you realize through the use of language that you're actually choosing everything, then you can stop playing the victim in your own world. Then you can actually be powerful. And you can say, okay, I started this business. Okay, I don't feel great about reaching out to 10 people to ask them about joining my new mastermind. But I don't have to do it. I choose to do it. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. And I choose to move through that uncomfortableness that I feel. How do I do it? I breathe deeply. And I remind myself that this is what I choose because I'm a free human being who chooses his or her life. That is the power of NLP. And hypnotherapy is essentially just one thing. You are replacing the script that is playing in your mind. I am weak. I am stupid. I am lazy. I am incapable. To, I am awesome. I trust myself. I'm a capable person. I'm a good person. I like myself. And hypnotherapy bypasses the analytical mind that says, yeah, you're not beautiful. You're fat and ugly, man. Come on, you're broke, making 10K per month. Oh, you're a laughing clown. That's the analytical mind. Once you get deeper through hypnosis, you can quickly update your script, and that changes your behavior relatively quickly, and that gets you new results.
So when people talk about affirmations, they obviously repeat to themselves all the things that perhaps they'd like to be and achieve, the mantras that are out there. That's only quite superficial then. So they would need the help of a practitioner, a hypnotherapist, to help them actually get their minds to really solidify and believe what they're saying is the new script. You can't just do that by pretending everything's hunky-dory. Is that right?
It depends. It's a slippery slope. So when you do affirmations, you need to get the body along with you. Because if you're sitting there and you say, I am healthy, I am successful, I am smart, I am beautiful, your mind goes, yeah, sure. That's because you can never think greater than how you feel. I'll say it again. You can never think greater than how you feel. And the most important element in feeling is your body. So now think about this, David. How do most entrepreneurs use their bodies? We sit hunched forward for 8 to 10 hours in front of our computers. We are dehydrated. We're living on a diet of crappy processed foods. We are, most of us, barely getting exercise. We're not really engaging in passionate, intimate sexual activities with our partners. Right? Our bodies are masterpieces, but most of us are not using it. And I'm not telling you go from not having done anything in life to being an Olympian, right? But do something. It can be as little as 5 minutes. See, if you want affirmations to work, you got to take your body and your breath along. So here's one simple exercise, right? You open your chest, open both arms spread out, and you breathe deeply. How do you feel? Do you feel a difference?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you feel the oxygen come and fill your lungs, fill your chest. You put your shoulders back. You feel more confident.
Yeah, exactly. Three. That was 3 breaths. Imagine you do 10, 20, 30, and you imagine you do the 1 minute breaks several times a day, which is what I do. And when I do that, I do affirmations, but I do it in alignment with my body. Like I sit, for instance, if I want to do something a bit more on the peaceful side, I sit quietly, I put my hand on my heart, I take deep breaths, and I can feel myself getting goosebumps of how peaceful my body becomes. And I say, I live in alignment with God. I am peaceful. I am healthy. Other times I go, I am powerful. And I bring it out. But that's when my mind believes it. Because think about this. How do people fall in love? They see another human being and their whole body goes crazy with hormones and endorphins flooding their brain. And then in their mind, they make a decision. She's the one. He's the one. My God, she's gorgeous. Oh, wow. And you fall in love. So that is programmed behavior. And then for many of us, after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, her again. Seen enough of her. Why? Because we stopped reconditioning ourselves to love. If you want a happy marriage, you have to constantly recondition your mind to see your partner as the one all the time. I do it almost every day. That's why I am madly in love with my wife after 7 years, and I will do anything I can to continue that process. And, life still happens, and sometimes you don't know where the road goes, but at least I decide every day to commit to the best I can.
Excellent. Now, I had so many notes I wanted to talk through with you, and I see our time is way now. I think probably could do an hour and a half podcast with you, but I'll skip some things because I think it's really important people get to know more about you. So before I ask my final question, which I think is quite important, is how can people learn more about you? Where can they find you? What social media are you on? Where's the best place to check you out?
Yeah. So I am active on all social media platforms, like LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Just type in my name, Mario Lanzarotti, MARIO Lanzarotti. You can also go to my website. It's my full name, MarioLanzarotti.com. And for anybody that reaches out to me from your show, I will share with you a free training that incorporates the teachings that I've shared with you today on how you can take that and double the revenue in your business and do it with a way of inner peace and balance.
Well, there's a challenge there. I think people would be crazy not to take that one up. But so would they go to your website? How would they?
Just reach out to me on social media.
Directly.
You can also write me an email. It's my name, mario@powerin.me. Either way, if you go onto any of those links, you will easily find a way to connect with me. And yeah, I want to hear, what resonated with you today. What inspired you? What was a part where you're like, that's stupid, I don't believe that? Challenge me, right? I'm not the almighty. I have lots of things to learn. I'm sharing a perspective that has helped me and thousands of my clients, and maybe it works for you too.
Brilliant. No, just before we finish, you've coached CEOs, you've coached Olympians, you've coached a whole range of entrepreneurs over a number of years now, and they've all had different challenges. Now, what people will love to hear is, can you share one or two, without naming names, of course, it's entirely up to you. Can you share how you've taken somebody who's been viewed as somebody who's a high achiever, how you've taken them from where they are into a completely different place? What did that look like? What was that transformation? How it could be measured? What are the things that you can share today to really emphasize the skills and competence that you can bring to people?
I'll give you a story of one of my absolute favorite clients. His name is Andre Haeckel Jr. Been coaching him for 3 years. When I started, he was working in his parents' basement. He was quite a smart, bright kid at an early age. He was running a low six-figure business, and he wanted me to coach him to move towards multi-seven figures. And I said, all right, let's take it on. And so what I looked at was, how was he showing up in his business? So if you're a business owner, your job and my job is to get you to move into your zone of genius. That means you focus on the tasks and areas in your business that you love, that you are the best at, and that provide the most value to the growth of your business. Very simple, no rocket science. However, very few actually get to do this. Why? Well, for Andre, what got in the way was his lack of awareness of his emotions, how he was feeling, and then his unwillingness to own them and to see the impact that they were having. See, Andre was feeling uncomfortable about certain decisions that his business partners were making. Andre was feeling uncomfortable about the performance of some of his employees. But guess what? He wasn't communicating it, because if he did, in his mind at the time, it would have meant that he is weak and that he's disrespectful, because some of his business partners were twice his age. So what happened is he ended up putting out fires in his business for months at a time. He wouldn't talk about certain financial decisions, so he would just swallow that. So what happens is a tiny problem then becomes a big problem. And so he would carry that stuff with him until the business failed. And that's when he finally said, okay, Mario, I'm ready to take a look at this now. And so now he communicates openly. He lets his partners, his team members, and his clients know what he wants, what is best for the company, and he's fully focused on the areas that he's supposed to be focusing on, which means he gets to live his genius in the business. So now he's running 2 multi-7-figure businesses. He's running a huge podcast. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter. And at his young age, he is an absolute superstar. See, it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an Olympian. As a human being, we need to get you into your zone of genius, because you're not the best at everything. I'm great at coaching. I'm great at speaking, but I suck at creating marketing. I suck at doing taxes and admin stuff. I would be the worst to do that. So I have people that do it for me. But a lot of entrepreneurs, they end up building a job. A lot of high performers, they end up not being able to perform because they haven't aligned their household. See, if you, as an Olympian, I need to align your household. I need to make sure that everybody's on board with you, and that you have clear boundaries for what you do, for what you don't do, for where you are showing up in the relationships that you have, so that you can focus on the thing that you do the most. I don't need to teach you that. You're already great at that. And that's how I work with clients. Remove all the things that they shouldn't be having in their life, so they can have the most fun, they can be the most efficient, and they can essentially design the kind of life that they want to have.
Well, some great advice there. Really interesting. You've helped to declutter a number of things, a number of people, and get them focused. So what can I say? Nice 2 7-figure businesses. That's not shabby. So brilliant. Well, thank you very much for sharing your time today. It's been wonderful talking to you, and hopefully people who are listening now will take you up on your offer and be in contact with you soon.
Beautiful. Dave, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you, dear listener, for making all of this possible, and have a beautiful rest of your day.
Great. Thanks then. Bye-bye. So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it, and it's given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. If you are a purchasing or a supply chain professional, business owner or director, come and join my Facebook group, the Purchasing and Supply Chain Community Hub, a safe place to engage with like-minded, friendly people. See you soon. Bye.